order. Duncan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to start off by saying that I believe that the former chairman of the committee, Peter King, needs an apology from mainstream media. He was vilified and demonized for holding radicalization hearings, and we saw just radicalization of Muslim youths happen with regard to Boston. And so that just want to throw that out there. I appreciate Chairman King's leadership as well as yours on this issue. Multiple conflicting reports indicate that Tamerlan may have been listed in one or more federal terrorist databases. We know the FBI's TIDE database, but he possibly had a terrorist watch list or a terrorist screening database, TSDB, and possibly a Treasury Enforcement Communication System or TEX file. So multiple different hits in different databases that may have alerted someone in law enforcement that he was a danger. And the federal government has known about information sharing challenges for years, and we talked about this in the last Congress and kind of pursuing some of that in this Congress about IT systems and communications and information sharing and cross-referencing. And I can do a Google search on Senator Lieberman and find out a lot, because these search engines are able to, on the private sector, able to interact and share and cross-reference that type of information. Since 2005, the GAO has sounded alarms about terrorist-related information sharing by placing it on its high-risk list. According to GAO, the federal government has made no substantial progress in developing a system to strengthen the sharing of intelligence, terrorism, law enforcement, and other information among all of its stakeholders, including federal, state, and local, tribal, international, and private sector partners. And we just heard that the local and state law enforcement, as part of the JTTF, were not notified of information that the feds may have. So yeah, we're struggling to connect the dots with regard to the cross-referencing or information sharing. So if the dots had formed a picture or the intelligence had been shared more effectively, Commissioner, do you believe we could have prevented the attack?
I can't answer that in one word. It's hard. I think the answer is it's hard to say. Someone looked at this initial information and closed the case. So there was an assessment that there wasn't enough there to do anything more than an initial interview. That all has to be reviewed as to what factors occurred during the interview, and I haven't seen that information. There's then other information that's coming in that there were further databases that may have had wrong information in them. All of that has to be looked at very closely. And I guess in hindsight, if you were to be able to connect all the dots on that during that first interview, there might have been an open case there that would have caused the FBI to brief everyone in the JTTF on it, and we would all know about it, and we'd all make a decision as to what each particular agency wanted to do with that information. But you have to look at the timeline as to who knew what when to make a determination as to whether or not mistakes were made. And I don't have the answers to that right now. So if we knew everything that we know now, absent the blast, well, without the blast being involved in it, but if we knew all of these things that have come out since then, we would have taken a hard look at these individuals. But at this point in time, I can't say that when we knew things that we would have done anything differently.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that files are actually closed on someone who we were notified by a foreign country that he may have had ties to terrorism, and they actually closed the file. That his name wasn't put into a system, and once we realized that this gentleman may be well, let me back up and say I'm amazed that the American people, the general public in Boston, had to identify this guy, that somebody within the FBI or JTTF didn't go, wait a minute, that guy looks familiar. Didn't we investigate him a couple of years ago? We had to rely on the folks within the Boston community to identify him. One thing we've talked about in this committee is the fact that CBP has a system, ICE has a system, FBI has a system, NCTC has a system, and that if you want to research information about certain individuals, you have to go into one system with a separate password. If you want to go into another system, you have to come out, maybe go to a different location, enter in with a new password in a different system, and do this over and over to make sure that you've got the redundancy necessary to find out all the information, whether it's a visa screening or whether it's an act of terror or an individual that's suspected. So we need to work, and I think, Senator Lieberman, this was partly why DHS was set up, so that it would be the hub and the wheel to share all that information so that we wouldn't have the mistakes made that we saw leading up to Boston, that we're starting to discover now. So I think this hearing is very timely to raise that awareness within the eyes of the American people that DHS is the hub and the wheel. We spent billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to do this, and I don't believe it's been effective as seen by Boston. So thank you for y'all's service, Commissioner. God bless you. And God bless all the first responders. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Let me thank